I knew the pathway like the back of my hand. I felt the earth beneath my feet.
Hello, this is the Shantaram vlog number 3. I'm going to read another story. I think I might keep these vlogs story-based. This is a story that I wrote about 3 years ago. It's called Tammy the Failure. I'm going to read it off my iPhone, so I'll probably be bent down a lot, like looking. I'll try to make a little bit of eye contact, and these vlogs will get better as time goes on. Come on, Tammy, you were 3 feet away from the basketball hoop. A whistle was blown. All right, girls, go change and get ready for your next class. Tammy was horrible at almost everything, from sports to arithmetic. She was failing out of school and didn't have much going on for her. She stepped outside of the gym after changing into her regular school clothes. The sunshine was glistening off of the cement, causing steam to evaporate the mist off of the pavement. The steam was opaque and reassuring that the sunshine was out to stay. Tammy walked to her next class. Tammy, did you complete your Spanish homework? This was the first question asked to Tammy as she entered her Spanish 2 class. Didn't think so. That's detention. After Tammy's 4th period class, she walked to her detention class. She opened the door to the class where she was to serve detention. Her Spanish 2 teacher, whom was a female with long dark hair, wore glasses and was of medium height, with a slim figure, was awaiting Tammy's arrival. Tammy sat down at one of the random desks and zipped open her backpack. She had a pin on her backpack that said, "Vote for Obama." The pin was unattached and poked Tammy in the finger as she unzipped the bag. Tammy cursed as the pin pricked her finger. A sense of pain entered her whole body, not only from the needle puncturing her finger, but also the fact that she was in detention for the 20th time and was only halfway through the school year. The bell rang. Ring! Tammy zipped up her bag and exited the classroom. As Tammy zipped up her bag, she noticed something unusual, something strange and peculiar. There was a note in her backpack. She put the note in her pocket as she had to get to the next class before she got another detention for being late. Tammy rushed to her next class. The building for the classroom was far away. Tammy tripped and all of her items fell out of her backpack. The zipper had come undone. All her items fell over the ground. The other kids laughed at Tammy. "Ha ha! Tammy, you're such a klutz!" shouted some of the children at her. This was her usual day. She received another detention for being late to her next class. Tammy rushed home after school. "Tammy, how was school?" her mother asked her. Before Tammy answered, she ran upstairs and slammed her door and blasted rock music in her room. "Tammy, it's time for dinner." Tammy's stomach growled as her mother called her down for dinner. She hadn't eaten all day due to the detention she had had at school. Tammy waltzed down the stairs into the dining room. She removed her chair from the table. The chair screeched as it was slid out from behind the table. She promptly sat down and began to eat dinner. "Say grace now, honey. You need to thank God for the food on your plate." Tammy was tired and hungry and didn't want to say grace, but she granted her mother's wish and said grace. Then she wolfed down her food and headed up to bed. Tammy was tired. As she lay in bed, the crickets chirped, and the moon was showing brightly through her bedroom window. She could hear the hooting of an owl. Hoo-hoo! The garbage truck came and got her trash. This kept her up for some time, too. She fell asleep at about 12:35 that night. "Tammy, it's time for school," shouted her mother. Tammy really didn't want to go to school that day. Her mother dropped her off at school. Uh-oh, I lost my place. Found it. As Tammy entered her first period PE class, which she hated, she found out that they had a substitute teacher. "Where's Mr. Gates?" asked Tammy. Mr. Gates was the PE teacher. He was one of the rudest teachers in the world. He was mean and only liked the popular girls and boys. "Didn't you read in the newspaper, Tammy? Mr. Gates has been abducted." One of Tammy's classmates handed her a newspaper. On the front page it showed a picture of Mr. Gates, and it said, "Paul Gates has now been abducted." It was a free-for-all in the classroom, and everyone was in shock that Mr. Gates had mysteriously vanished. Tammy had put on the same pants that she had worn the night before, and remembered about the note. She reached into her pocket and retrieved the note. There was some gray lint on the note that was crumpled up and in her pocket. She uncrumpled the note, and it read, "Be at 1322 Shantaram's Way tomorrow." She realized that tomorrow was actually today. Tammy was curious about what was happening at this particular place. Shantaram's Way was a poorer part of town where low-income people lived. Tammy went to her detention and didn't get any more detentions that day. Tammy asked if she could use the phone to call her mother. Tammy was granted a wish. She dialed her mother's number and lied to her mother and said she was going to study for a Spanish test with one of her colleagues. The end of the day school bell rang, and Tammy rushed out of the school. She got a taxi and said, "Sir, I need to go to 1322 Shantaram's Way." It started raining. The rain pelted down on the windshield. The wipers were working overtime to eliminate the water that was accruing on the windshield. There was a loud bolt of lightning that rattled the jack-in-the-box ball on the top of the antenna on the taxi. The taxi stopped at 1322 Shantaram's Way. She opened the door to the taxi and stepped in a puddle. Her shoes were saturated in water. "Thanks, sir." She gave the taxi man his money and proceeded to walk up the door of the house. She walked up to the porch. A spider was moving closely to a fly in a web. The fly's wings were flapping and could be heard as a buzzing sound. The spider's legs moved creepily and caught the fly and started tearing it to pieces. Another bolt of lightning was heard, and a flash of lightning struck through the air. The rain was pouring down in the street behind Tammy. A small, fluffy white cat had a baby kitten in her mouth, carrying her baby kitten to the rest of her kittens underneath the house. Tammy stepped up to the moldy, musty, mystifying door. The door was opened, and out stepped a lady, so grotesque and utterly ugly. She had bumps all over her face and down her neck. Pus was coming out of the bumps on her face. She was small and had glasses on. Tammy smiled at the lady. The lady said, "Welcome. Can you please enter my home?" Tammy proceeded to walk into the house of the old woman. The woman smelled of cat urine. The rug was covered in stains. There were books and CDs cluttering the house. The house was distasteful in every imaginable way. "Please sit down," the woman asked Tammy to sit. Tammy sat down in front of an old television. "I go for walks in your neighborhood. That is how I know you. I trust that you will find this to a suitable person." Tammy was handed an old VHS tape. "What's on this tape?" asked Tammy. The old woman took the tape out of Tammy's hands and proceeded to put it into the old VCR. As the tape entered the VCR and played, the screen was a little fuzzy. She picked up an old busted-up brown stick and slammed it on top of the VCR as to get the signal right. The tape showed Mr. Gates on his break at fourth period. He was eating a sandwich when all of a sudden a man took his Mr. Gates' head and slammed Mr. Gates' head down hard onto the desk. It then showed the man's face who abducted Mr. Gates in plain view. "How did you get this tape, miss?" asked Tammy. "Never you mind that. You just make sure this tape gets to the proper authority." Tammy exited the house. The door squeaked shut behind Tammy. Tammy had the power in her hands to save Mr. Gates. Mr. Gates was utterly horrible to Tammy and had given her many detentions. The picture on the tape would instantly pinpoint who was behind the abduction of Mr. Gates. Tammy knew this. Tammy stuffed the tape into her bag. Tammy made it home and put the tape in her VCR at home. The tape continued to play where it had left off, with Mr. Gates getting dragged out of his office. Another man opened up Mr. Gates' desk, and it was shown on the video that the man pulled out a vial filled with some kind of substance out of Mr. Gates' desk. Tammy observed the vial being pulled out of Mr. Gates' desk. The man took the vial and tilted it upside down to make sure whatever was inside of it would remain intact. Tammy did the right thing and called the police and showed the police the tape the next day. The men on the tape were instantly targeted. They were known in the town. They were Mormons and would walk door to door teaching people about their religion. 2 men were caught today after a young girl whom we can't name released video footage of Paul Gates' abductees. Gates is at home now with his family. His nose is bandaged up due to an injury, but he will be fine. The local news was playing on everyone's television in the local town. 3 months later. A serious virus has infected the entire nation. The cause is unknown and people are dying at an increasing rate. You see, if Tammy would have never pricked her finger on the needle on her backpack, noticed the note, lied to her mother about where she was going, entered the taxi, found the old lady, got the videotape, released the videotape to the police, Mr. Gates would have never released a deathly toxin into the Earth's atmosphere, killing off half the population. Tammy, you're just a failure. So that was a story that I wrote about 3 years ago. Thanks for listening to the Shantaram vlog. Have a wonderful day. Bye.